The movie The Gray is about a group of Arctic oil workers who escape a plane crash and attempt to make it back to civilization, only to be confronted by a vicious group of wolves.
This is Ilya Fischhoff for Down to Earth.
And I'm Sabrina McCormick.
Our guest today, Dr. Dan MacNulty, has been studying wolves since 1995. He is Assistant Professor of Wildlife Ecology in the Department of Wildland Resources at Utah State University. Dan, thank you very much for joining us.
Glad to be here.
The movie is a classic battle of man versus nature. The character played by Liam Neeson says that the wolves will try to kill the group of survivors if they are within 30 miles of the wolf pack's den. What do wolves do when people come near a den?
It's not unusual for them to actually abandon the den site, take their pups to another den site in response to human disturbance. Towards the end of the summer, they'll be locating around what's called a rendezvous site that won't be associated with the actual den itself. It may be nearby, but that's an area that is also subject to disturbance too, and what they'll do is they'll just pick up and move to another rendezvous site.
So in the movie, the men are all oil workers stationed in the Arctic, and they're on a plane going home for home leave. And of course, there are actually facilities like this in the Arctic and pipelines that run from there. At a hearing of the House of Representatives Natural Resources Committee on February 1st, Representative Louis Gohmert, who is a Republican from Texas, said that caribou actually benefit from oil pipelines. He said,
caribou, when they want to date, liked how warm the pipeline was, and so when they wanted to go on a date, they'd invite each other to head over to the pipeline. And what it resulted in was like 10 times the number of caribou now that there was before the pipeline.
Is that true?
I'm not aware of any data indicating caribou use of the oil pipeline corridor.
Alaska lethally controls wolves with the goal of increasing prey available for people to hunt. And Idaho plans to potentially shoot wolves from helicopters this year to increase elk numbers. How does removing wolves affect hunting opportunities for people?
My expectation would be that if all you're doing is killing wolves and not looking at bears, it wouldn't surprise me if you don't see any effect at all. And the other thing too that you have to keep in mind is that the whole idea that removing predators increases ungulate numbers is really premised on the notion that predators and predation is what's actually controlling ungulates to begin with, what we refer to as top-down effects. And a lot of the long-term studies that have been done have shown that actually more often than not, these ungulate populations are being controlled by bottom-up effects. That is, the quality of the habitat, the availability of the habitat. So these bottom-up effects typically have the most influence on ungulate dynamics over the long run. And if you really want to sustain large numbers of ungulates over the long term, what you really need to do is focus on habitat improvement, and that, removing predators can have a short-term effect, but, you got to keep in mind how expensive that is to kill all those predators. I mean, helicopter time is not cheap. You're talking hundreds of dollars, if not more, per hour. And, at the end of the day, what I'd be interested in seeing is an economic analysis of, how much are we benefiting in terms of dollars saved or gained by removing wolves versus how much is being lost through the control effort.
Can you tell us about your closest encounter with a wolf and how you both reacted?
I was doing some field work, doing some vegetation sampling, and I think I was resting, and this wolf just sort of blundered right into me as I was sitting there with my friends. And the first thing he did was turn around and run away, just like that. And before I even really registered with me that what I had seen was a wolf, he was gone. or she was gone. So it was sort of like split-second thing. And its response was by far, or very much a response of, it fled. It was a fearful response. It was by no means a curious response or an aggressive response, but by every indication, it was a fearful. And wolves are easily intimidated. People don't really realize that, but that's why, if you recall, the idea that wolves hunt the old, the weak, the sick, the young. The reason why they have those preferences, those prey preferences, is because those animals pose the least risk of injury to the wolves themselves.
In the movie, these guys are running, and the wolves, they just keep attacking them. It's kind of relentless.
I know what, elk do in that kind of a situation is that what they'll do is they'll go run into a body of deep water. Moose will do this too. And what happens is that the wolves lose their footing if the water's deep enough. And then all of a sudden, the tables are turned, and the advantage is to the prey animal.
Mm-hmm, well, actually, it's funny. In the end of the movie, they actually accidentally fall into a running stream or river. And that does seem to work, actually.
Well, okay, so
might actually be some realism.
That's encouraging.
Well, thank you so much, Dan. It's really been a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you.
Okay, you guys. Nice meeting you, too. Okay.